Hi, my name's Nick Smith, and I'm an engineer on the Bosch Windows team, or the team that built Stembuild, the tool for creating vSphere stem cells. Um, Making this video to sort of go through the flow of creating a stem cell using Stembuild, and we're gonna start this from ground zero with no virtual machine brought up on vCenter, Stembuild not even downloaded yet. All I'm starting with is a Windows 2019 ISO. We're not really covering how to get this ISO in this video. There are a few different ways, but assuming you want a 2019 stem cell for vSphere, you're going to need a Windows 2019 ISO. I just have it here on my local machine in a directory called Windows Stem Cell, because this is where we're going to ultimately build and put our final stem cell. So let's go through documentation and just see what we need to get started. So first prereq is a vSphere environment. Have that open right here. Not signed in, but we have it. We need the Windows 2019 ISO. We've got that. We need Stembuild. So the CLI we're actually going to grab from PivNet. It's held in the same place as all the other Windows stem cells, because Stembuild should be thought of as a stem cell almost. It's just the automation for creating a vSphere stem cell, not for creating any stem cell. It's creating a specific version. So if I wanted a Windows 1803 stem cell, 1803.12, I would need a Stembuild CLI of version 1803.12. So the version of Stembuild is the version stem cell that it's going to create. So we're working with 2019.6. So let's go over here. Here are all the stem cell options. We're going to go for Stembuild. I'm running this on a Windows machine. So the CLI itself, we're going to want the Windows binary. You can run Stembuild from a Linux machine, but Stembuild will always build a Windows stem cell. So let's go ahead and download the Windows binary. It should be in our downloads. Oh, look at that. Let's move it over to our working directory. It's doing it. All right, cool. So now we have our ISO and Stembuild in there. Cool, that's another prereq checked off. We also need the Microsoft Local Group Policy Object Utility, or LGPO for short. We can just click this link here and it should take us to the site. If for some reason the link isn't available, you can also just Google it. Hit download here. We don't really want any of the stuff. We just want lgpo.zip. That should be downloading. Cool. Same deal. I just want to move it from my downloads. Oh, I'm not looking at my downloads. Straight into my working directory of Windows Stem Cell. This is less of an organizational choice and more required. Oh, I didn't move it. Stembuild actually requires that you have this LGPO zipped up, not extracted, to be in the same directory that you're going to be running Stembuild from. So ultimately, at the end of this video, I'm going to be going into this directory, running this executable. This LGPO needs to be in the same directory, not anywhere else. Cool. One other prereq checked off. Next up, we need a vCenter user on this vSphere environment we previously talked about, to have certain permissions. So we've been provided a user. I'm just going to open up my notepad real quick. I have some important information here. For right now, let's just look here. We've been given a user specifically for this video that has all of these permissions. So I'm going to go ahead and prove to myself that we have this user, and it's actually correct by signing into vSphere real quick. So let's put in the username. let's grab the password here. And if you're thinking of taking these, they're going to be deleted by the time this video is over. Let's see. Cool. So this takes a bit. All right. Looks like we're back and it's loaded up. This is just me proving that I could sign in. So let's go back to the documentation, see what's next. It looks like we have fulfilled all the prereqs. So let's move forward. Step 1, create a base VM for the Bosch Stemcell. Basically, we're going to want a base VM that's fully updated, that StemBuild can hit with a construct command. Oh wait, no, sorry. We want a base VM that's fully updated that we can clone, and then that clone we can hit with the StemBuild construct command. The benefit of this is that when new updates roll around, you could re-update the base VM, clone it, and then hit this new clone with construct. The main issue is that after construct, you won't be able to reuse a VM. So that's why we're calling it the base VM. So let's go ahead and get started here. So we're not actually going to be uploading our ISO to a data store, because instead we're going to be providing the ISO locally from our machine. We have it here in our file directory already. But we can cross that bridge when we get there. First, we need a machine to begin with. So let's go ahead, go in our vSphere environment, go to VMs and templates. Let's go to the correct data center. We only have one, you might have many. Check in with your IT to see where you should be doing this. So I'm gonna make a folder to hold our base. Let me see here, new folder, new VM and template folder. Let's give it a second. Give it an appropriate name. Let's just call it Stemcell for now. Let's check back in with the documentation. The folder is mostly for organizational purposes. I would just like to have all the StemBuild related machines inside one location. So now we can actually continue with step 1 here. All right, let us make a new virtual machine. Let's find that Stemcell directory. Right here. Cool, should be empty because we just made it. We're gonna make a new virtual machine. New virtual machine, not from a library, we're gonna fully customize it. All right, let's see if the docs have opinions on how we should be making this VM. Okay, we need to enter a name for it, select an appropriate location. I can do that. Create new virtual machine, next. Enter a name for the virtual machine. I'm gonna call this Windows 2019 base. Cool. And I'm gonna put it in my Stemcell folder. Next. All right. Let's see what the next step is. Select a compute resource. So again, you might need to check back in with your IT about what resource you should be using for this machine. I happen to know that we decided to use one called Calgary. You could choose either a host or a resource pool. We've decided to go with the resource pool, Calgary. Compatibility check succeeded. Cool. Select storage. A lot of these steps are things that will be different, or not steps, but a lot of the things you're selecting will be different based on your vSphere environment. So I just want to reiterate again that this is how our vCenter is set up, you might have many different storage locations or just one. If you have questions about which one you should pick, you should definitely check in with your IT department. But for right now, I'm just going to pick the one with the most free space. Let's go ahead and hit next. Check back in with the documentation. So we've selected storage. So we want to make sure that we select ESXi 6.0 and later. Believe that is selected. All right, select a guest OS. See what the documentation says. So we should select Windows for guest OS family, and for guest OS version, we should select Windows Server 2019, but if it's not available, Windows Server 2016. Cool. So we are Windows. Let's scroll up to the top, see what we got. We don't have 2019, so per the documentation, I'm going to select 2016 here. We will still get a 2019 Stemcell. Next. All right, let's see if we have any opinions on hardware customization. So we want a hard disk, 30 gigabytes or greater. So as I mentioned earlier about the data store and the ISO, we're going to finally cross that bridge here. Sometimes you might have your ISO file in a data store on vCenter. That is a workflow you can go through. For the purposes of this video, it felt simpler to have the ISO on our machine. So really the only difference here is instead of getting it from a data store on vCenter, we are providing it straight from our machine. So we don't actually have to do this section, but we do need a hard disk with 30 gigs or more. And also for our build purposes, I'm just going to give this 2 CPUs and 8 gigs of RAM. This is not reflected in the Stemcell you create or the machines brought up by Bosch that would be using this Stemcell. This is just the machine that we'll be building against using StemBuild. Also, our network is not actually Oakville because we selected the Calgary resource pool. Let's go ahead and quickly set that up. The VM does need to be hittable from a network for StemBuild to work. So we want to make sure that we get all the networking correct. Calgary. That's a hit. Okay. All right. 2 cores, 8 gigs, Calgary. Not worried about the CD disk drive right now. 40 gigs of storage space, which is more than the documentation specified as a minimum. All right, looks good to me. So we're gonna go ahead and hit next. Just double checking, make sure I'm not missing anything. I think we're good. All right, does the documentation say anything else, or do we go to the end? Looks like we go to the end. Let's go ahead and click finish. And we should see a machine pop up in here. Oh, move me to the top. Let's go back to Stemcell. Windows 2019 base. Cool. Let's quickly go back to the documentation, see what's next. All right, so now for another slight difference. We're going to be installing the Windows server from our ISO. So the workflow here works because it assumes that we've used the data store route, where we could just power on the VM and we would have connected it already to this machine and it would start installing Windows. So since we didn't go that route, we have to do a little bit extra. We have to actually attach our ISO to this machine. Because again, it only lives on this our local machine right now. So to do that, we're actually going to use the Gonna wait for this to load real quick. Cool. We're actually going to use the remote console. Now, I'm gonna click launch remote console here. But fortunately, we did not download it yet. This is actually a utility you need to get from VMware. Luckily, there's a link right here, so makes our lives easy. Scroll down here. 10.0.4, sure. For Windows, that's what I care about. Downloading. I agree. All right, so this should be in our downloads folder. This is kind of separate from StemBuild proper. This doesn't need to go in our Windows Stemcell directory, and StemBuild doesn't interact with this, but we need it to set up our ISO. It's gonna wait for that to pop up an install wizard. Next. Accept. Ooh. That's fine. No thanks, no thanks. Install, cool. All right, looks like we are done installing that. Finish. All right, now what I expect to happen is I should be able to launch the remote console now. Let's see. Open it. Cool. So this is a remote console to our virtual machine. Doesn't have an operating system yet, and it's not even turned on. But we're going to be attaching our ISO first. And then we can boot up the machine and it can load up our Windows 2019 server. So let's go over here to VMRC, manage virtual machine settings. Cool. I don't want to mess with most of these things. I do want to mess with the CD drive though. Connect to power on. I want it to connect when we turn this machine on. Don't use the physical drive, so let's use ISO image. Oh wait, let us actually browse for it. Would like to see it in the file system. Perfect. I'll just put it right there. Make sure I had the right one there. So we should hit OK. And now, if we start the machine, we would expect it to load up. We'll see though. Sometimes you do. All right, so if you see this screen, it did not connect the CD drive fast enough for it to actually see the Windows operating system. So I'm just going to send a Control-Delete and restart the machine. It should be connected now, so it should see it and attempt to install Windows. So this can take a little bit, so let's just wait it out. All right, the Windows is starting up. Should be brought to an installation screen. Perfect. All right, we have to actually click on the window, take control. I am happy with all those options. Let's install now. All right, so before we continue, I just want to sync back up with the documentation. See where we're at. Install Windows Server. We didn't go the data store route. So we're supposed to select Windows Server Standard. then go through the custom installation process. All right, so we do want the standard. Hit next there. That should eventually bring us to the next page. All right, I accept these terms. I'm going to go with the custom install. I'm just going to select the OneDrive we have. Hit next there. All right, this can take a while, but we're actually installing Windows. So our machine is restarting here. All right, it looks like we have installed Windows. So we're going to go ahead and log into this machine and set the administrator password. We are actually going to need VM credentials, such as administrator and its password, to move forward with StemBuild. So let's make sure that we put in a password that we can remember. All right. So now we are in the machine. The next step we're going to have to go through. Well, actually, let's look at the documentation. We have completed this step. So let's go ahead, move forward with it. I'd like us to verify the OS version from PowerShell. All right, we can do that, why not? We can't copy paste into this terminal right now, as it currently is, so forgive me for typing this out, but I'm gonna launch PowerShell, because there's a PowerShell command. Let's just type this in real quick. Yeah. All right, so the 17763 is the OS build number that corresponds to 2019. That's why the documentation asks you to look specifically for this. This might change if you are not doing Windows 2019. But this is a good double check, basically, to make sure that the ISO we provided was actually a Windows Server 2019. Cool. Let's move on in the documentation. Install VMware tools. All right, so to do this, we're going to have to go from the vCenter web UI. Let's go over here. Hopefully I'm still logged in. Looks like I am. So we need to install VMware tools. I'm going to quickly check the documentation. Probably should have read a little closer. Guest OS into. All right, so guest OS. Install VMware tools. Yep, this is all right. Our machine is running, so this should be okay. All right, let's install VMware tools. Oh, so this is the same outcome. All right. Let's follow the documentation then. It appears it is already on the machine. Navigate to the D drive and we run the setup64.exe. Sure. Got this machine, slash. All right, didn't need the slashes. Just make sure we have it in here. Yep, setup64. Setup64.exe. Hit enter. This should run. I'm going to move this back to center again so we can see everything. All right, next. I'm going to make sure that our documentation doesn't have any opinion on how we should do this. I'll just go with typical if not. Nope, it just tells us to go through the process. All right, so let's go with typical then. Next, install. Finish. All right, so we do need to restart the machine. So we're just going to wait for that to happen. Machine is booting back up. Great. On the machine. The mouse is much better after you install VMware tools. Send Control Delete. Let's put in the password that we typed in. All right, we are in the machine. We have VMware tools installed. Let's go back to PowerShell. All right, I think we can continue and see what the next steps are.